Keep it tight. Don't let him pull you. Awesome. Yeah.
Hey, so we're Jack doing it. It's all right.
That was amazing.
What's up, guys? Here we are at the best bodybuilding gym in Dubai, Benos, here with Derek Smith. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
Today we're going to be having a little bit of one-on-one time with Derek. We don't have our usual group. That's in a couple of days. We still have Hermes, Gennady, and Vitaly coming. So we're going to have quite the group, quite the mashup.
That is quite the mashup.
This is like, what do you call that Nintendo game where like all the different Nintendo characters?
Oh, like Super Smash Bros.?
Exactly, yeah, it's like Super Smash Bros. Yeah. So we're going to be covering the fundamentals today because even though I have glazed over the fundamentals, they're still not clear to me. For example, where to put my foot, why to put it there. So we're going to be going over the whys today, right? And you think you're really good at explaining the why.
I love the whys. That's an important thing. You can't grow if you don't know the why. I mean, whatever you do, you need to understand why you're doing it. Or there's no point in doing it. Or how are you going to adjust, you know?
Absolutely.
So it's important.
So we have the table here and ready. Let's rock and roll. Let's do it.
Yeah, okay. Right. So I want to start with foot placement. I'll look at yours. Actually, go to the table how you would normally stand, and I just want to see how you're doing it
sure.
right now. Right?
So I like to put my foot around here, the peg, and hook it because the why, for me, from what I understand, so my hip stays against the table. Anywhere else I put it outside of that peg, and it's very hard to stay connected to the table and I'm getting away from my arm.
You go ass out.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay. So what tends to happen in arm wrestling is with your dominant foot, say we're doing right-handed arm wrestling. So for this example, I'll say my dominant foot. So your dominant toe, wherever that's facing, you're gonna drive opposite, right? So if my toe is facing forward, I'm gonna drive backwards. My toe is facing over here, I'm gonna drive backwards. My toe is facing this way, I'm gonna be driving this way, right? So
you could go over that again.
Okay. So where my dominant toe is facing, for the arm I'm arm wrestling with, you're going to generally drive opposite of where that's going, right? So if the toe is forward, I'm going to be pushing backwards. If my feet are over here, I'm going to be pushing sideways, right? So just as far as toe placement, that's what's going to show your main drive. So a lot of people, I can tell if you were going to arm wrestle some random person that walked up, by his foot placement, I can have a good idea of where he's going, already where he's going to start driving towards. Now, your non-dominant foot, your off foot, where that toe is angled is where your shoulders are going to end up. So a lot of people will start with their foot placement like this, meaning at the end of my motion, I'm trying to end up like this. You're going to naturally try to correct yourself and twist to having your foot straight, right? So my new guys, generally, I have them start generally squared up, both toes forward. So that way it's more of a backwards motion. They're not tempted to adjust sideways. Now I don't know if you noticed when Levon was here, he arm wrestles like this. He walks up sideways, and then he turns like this.
Yes.
Right? He's torquing up all his spine and everything, and he's compressing everything, so he's naturally trying to turn. Now, that's a super way of generating more power for sure, more dangerous, right? Because now we're twisting, we're getting really twisted on our arm, which can produce a lot of torque on your arm and break your arm in half if you're not trained for it, right?
Which we will cover in another video, how to break arm wrestling.
Yeah, so we definitely need to do that. So, foot placement depends on your style, right? So if you're more of an inside puller, then you might, like your style that you were showing me where you're wrapping around, what that's doing is that's generating force by pushing off the leg of the table like this with your leg, which is allowing you to push sideways. And it's also giving you a solid base so you can't be lifted up, like you said, with your hip here. So it's a really inside and sideways type of setup, right? So it's definitely a hook or press type of setup right there as long as far as your foot's going, right? Your off foot, where do you normally put your non-dominant foot? You have it sideways, right? So yeah, that's a torquey setup. You're getting ready to twist for sure and go really hard sideways with that setup with your foot placement, right? So if you're in a tournament and you're going against my teammate, I'd be like, guys, he is going sideways. He's about to jam in there with that shoulder. Prepare, it's coming in. It's coming in for sure. And if you're not, with that setup, you're trying to drive back. You're outside your shoulder. You don't have a lot of access to the muscles you want to use by turning sideways like that, right?
Yeah, I get no back pressure. So I'm at a bit of a conflict because if I have this setup, top row with me is not efficient. I don't feel like I get any back pressure trying to top row from here.
Right.
Because now this is where I feel comfortable for my feet placement to stay glued to the table, but awful for top row, right? And I think you just explained that.
Well, because naturally, since you're going to be torqued sideways like that, if you try to top roll and you can't post backwards, you're naturally going to be rolling into their hand because you're going sideways. So instead of going into their hand, you're naturally going right in, or going into their fingers. Sorry, you're naturally going into their palm, into their arm, which is harder as far as getting control because you're going into it because of your setup, right? So having a more straight up setup, if you're planning on top rolling, will give you more access to going backwards. Now, top rolling. Before we get there, I'm starting to take off. I'm starting to take off and get really into the top rolling detail stuff. We'll get there, okay? So, foot placement, that's the whys, right? Where your toes facing and why will show where you're driving. So just keep that in mind as far as when you're setting up. If you're top rolling, prepare to fly backwards. So I would have a toe forward if you're top rolling, okay? Or my dominant toe forward. Gotcha. Okay. Now, I teach new guys to have both hips to the table. The moment, usually that lasts about half a practice, and then that hip comes off. We do both hips only because I want to get them used to being squared up, so it's less dangerous and you're not turning as much. But any arm wrestler past like 30 days already starts leaning, taking that hip. But one hip should always be in touch with the table at all times, pretty much. Because staying tight is strong, it's smart, it's safe, right? Staying tight has a bunch of positive reasons to do that, right? So I would say one hip always in contact. Now, when you're driving in arm wrestling, when you start pulling backwards, like Larry was saying earlier, you tend to go ass out. Most new guys go ass out. When they start trying to pin, their butt goes way away from the table. But what that's doing is that's separating your lat by doing that. Your elbow stays on the pad, but your ass goes out, so everything in here opens up, right? So you have less drive. So I tell all my new guys, try to put your dick underneath the middle of the table. That's what I say to them because basically you're gonna be sliding down, trying to put your dick right underneath the middle of that table, which will keep you in contact with the table at all times. All right? So everything goes under. You have amazing posture, but in arm wrestling, it might work against you. And that's the thing that big chest, and you're out there, but arm wrestlers' posture is really caved over. It's really standing above. So I tell some of the guys that come to my team that have big chests and stuff like that, screw your posture for today. I hate to say that, but in order to access and slide things around, to being hunched over will allow you more access to move that arm around, which is big, because that's how we use our chest in arm wrestling, by sliding our elbow, right? So out here, in the way, out here, like this, not as much. So hunched over, standing tall, it leads to a lot of different possibilities, and you can fortify your elbow in a lot of different ways by standing, having bad posture, as opposed to having your arm out there, right? Because more advanced, we'll get there. I'm gonna get there. There's a lot of things that go off on. Okay, so foot placement's right, hip placement, one always on, dick's going underneath the middle of the table when you're driving. Now, we start setting up our elbow placement. This is where we start talking about different moves, right? This is where it gets into hooking and top rolling and pressing, kind of depends on your setup here. Now, we'll pull, and then I'll be able to, over time, get an idea of what I think you should do, but obviously you're gonna do what you wanna do. The peg, holding onto the peg is, in one position, it'll add horsepower, but generally it's a safety reason. The reason that you have to be in contact with this peg at all times is so your shoulder stays squared up so you don't break your arm down. If I let go of this, I'm more prone to turning sideways and breaking my arm down. Right? So this is here so that we stay squared up. Now there are some moves, like a press, where you would actively pull on it, but more often than not, it's just there for safety. That's why they freak out about it. That's why there's a rule you have to be in contact with it at all times. So yeah, the handles, the pegs don't provide a ton of support, but in very specific situations they can, but it's just more of a safety thing, right? As far as staying squared up with it. The rules are you just have to stay in contact with it. So when I arm wrestle, my hand will be like this, just on the tip of it, because I want my elbow to clear this table more than anything.
Just the thumb?
Yeah, I do. I play just the tip every time that I arm wrestle, right? Very important. But I generally have new guys when they come onto the team grab upside down like this, because there's no way you're gonna hit this table if your arm's upside down. It just naturally clears the edge of it.
So I never knew why people grip like this. Now I know. I learned. Keep things ready.
So that way it clears.
Always clears. Gotcha.
Right. So foot placement's right, hip placement's right. We know why we're grabbing this. Now the rest of the stuff, this is where it starts getting a little chopped up. This is where you start getting into hooks, top rolls, and stuff like that. Now I have, on my team, I train everybody to hook. I used to train everybody top roll when they first started, but everybody starts at hook on my team because, one, I want to condition your elbow. Our approach, right, and I know your experience has been a little different than this, is no matter what, this needs to get conditioned. We can do it the fast way, get it done in 8 months, 9 months, or we can run from it and make it last 2 years, where it's always gonna hurt every time you go inside at all. So our approach is more, let's just get at it. Let's get at it right from step one. right? So we tend to go at the elbow. We do elbow conditioning stuff, we go at this. So a lot of my team hooks now because we tend to dive at that problem, right? Also, hooking, and I know you won't have a problem with this, is a more big muscle style of training, of competing, right? So when you lose in a hook, your big muscles are failing. Your biceps failing, your chest is failing, things are failing, the big muscle groups are failing when you lose in a hook. When you lose in a top roll, what people tend to do is they tend to think, I should have moved my finger. I should have repositioned my thumb. I should have done a small, intricate movement, and they don't tend to go home and be like, I need to get stronger. Well, the most productive thing you can do in the world is want to get stronger, right? So when you lose in a hook, generally people want to get stronger. They're like, my big muscles failed. It's conditioning this more in general. And also, I think that in deep hooking is more of a higher level of technical arm wrestling than outside pulling, in my opinion. I know people say top rolling is all technique, but when you go inside a hook, you're using big muscles and there's big plays to be made as far as taking positions and stuff on the elbow pad, and there's big angles you got to worry about, and there's a lot at play, because if you mess up in a hook, things are failing. All of a sudden he has access to his chest and his lat and everything like that, and everything's getting opened up. Now if you're in a top roll, you can run and stuff like that, so I feel like deep inside hooking is way more of a technical style of arm wrestling, personally. I used to top roll for 7 years, and now I pretty much hook consistently. So that's how I start my guys. Now, you've already been in it for a while now, and you already have a good vibe of what you like or what hurts and what doesn't for you, and also the training, your other things and stuff like that, so we don't want to set that back. So that would be dialed in, how you want it. But in that name, do you want to start working on some hook stuff, or do you want to keep working on top roll stuff?
Let's do some hook stuff.
Hook stuff? Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So we'll chalk up a little bit. So we're going to be here all week. I'm not trying to tear him down. I don't want to tear myself down. Hermes comes in a couple days. Just some center of the table, light stuff. I know you guys want to see if Larry's going to rip my arm off, but let's just take it light for today and take it easy. We don't want to kill ourselves, for sure. It's a long week of arm wrestling. So. Never chalk the back of my hand. Never chalk the back of your hand, guys. Why would I ever want anybody to hold on to me better?
Who recommended we chalk the back? Somebody recommended that recently.
Chalk the back again?
Yeah. Was it Michael?
Well, for training, I guess, if you want to make training a little more fluid. But in general, I would never want people wipe sweat on the back of their head. You don't want anybody to hold on to you. Why would, you know what I mean? You don't want anybody to be successfully hold on to you. So, someone yelled at me when I was a new arm wrestler about that. Said, don't ever chalk the back of your hand. You're only helping your opponent. I was like, oh, that makes sense. And then sometimes we'll chalk the elbow pad only so you can slide around a little easier. People will do that. I don't want to mess up your Mazurenko table. This nice table. Okay. So you're going to do the setup
for hooking, then yeah.
Okay. So all arm wrestling is broken down into 3 steps. All successful matches are broken down into 3 steps. It's establish your hand, get ready to pin, right? So it gets deeper than that, but that's the really basic version of it. Any move you want to do, if you get your hand looking the way you want to get your hand, then that move becomes way easier. The odds of success shoot through the roof, right? I would say a 30% jump likelihood that you're going to win if you establish your hand, right? If you want to get a deep hook, then you want the deepest hook possible. If you want a top roll, you want his hand owned. But you don't start going to step 2 until you've done step 1, until you've established your hand. What tends to happen is people will get, say you want a hook, people will get this much of a hook, right? That much of a wrist curl, and then they'll start trying to pin like that. Now, instead of being that 30% increase, you got like a 10% increase, right? And his hand isn't completely supinated over, and you're not controlling the match that way. So I'm a big believer in establishing your hand, meaning the whole beginning of any match is going to be you're hooking, getting your hand like this. You're going to be chasing until you get your hand like this, meaning I know Mike promoted not to go forward, but that's why you see a lot of European. I don't agree with Mike on this one point. He said that Europeans go backwards and Americans go forwards. I always seen the opposite. So I've seen like Prudnick and other guys go forward. They go forward, they dive into the hook like this, and they're European. And a lot of Americans go backwards. But Mike's been in the game a lot longer than me, so maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe they're Russian?
Yeah, maybe. Oh yeah, 100% Russian. Well, they're still like Bulgarian. There's a bunch of them. They all go forward. But so since we're going to try to establish our hand, then we're going to be going forward for right now. Just humor me. Sure. All right. So we'll be practicing deep hooking, meaning hooking below the wrist. There's hooking above the wrist, which is like high hooking, where my pressure is going to be up. I'll be controlling the top, everything above your wrist, basically. Okay. Then there's deep hooking, where our wrists connect below the wrist. So we're
meat
talking,
of the-
yeah, like this, where we can make a fist and we can just arm wrestle like this. Like that's deep inside hooking.
Right here.
Right, yeah, because now we're taking this joint out of the equation. Now, arm wrestling, we'll get on to step 2. Step 1, right? So we're trying to get the deep hook. Now, you've been going over cupping with everybody like that, and they've been talking about trying to sink in your cup. Now you know why. The more you sink it in, the more it exposes everything else for me, right?
Here, my hand on top of yours.
Right.
But now, here's a question I have that's still unclear to me. When you're in start position, and for example, we're going at the wrist, or we're going here for today?
You can start however you want to get. I mean, most people when they're going for a deep hook tend to grip a little bit lower because it's a little easier to control. But if I'm going in there willingly with you, then you don't have to worry about controlling me so much. As if I was top rolling, then you would have to worry about your finger placement a lot more. Now, since in this example we're both hooking. In this example, I'm sweaty.
Same.
Okay. In this example, we're both going to be hook arm wrestlers. So since you know I'm going in there, establishing your hand shouldn't be that difficult because I'm going to go for the same hand control. We're gonna clash wrists. It's going to happen one way or the other, right?
And am I trying to protect my pronator? Meaning, am I trying to keep this pronated and then hook, or am I letting the pronator go? So then you're getting on top of my hand. If I let the pronator go.
My style of hooking is more supination and cupping.
Okay, so is your pronator still protected here? It looks like my hand on top of yours a little bit.
We'll get first we're gonna sink in the hook and then we'll get into pronation and when and how and why to use it in my opinion.
Okay, got
Right?
it.
So whatever you have to do in order for you to get your full cup, meaning if you have to come forward, you have to give yourself a little bit of a runway to come forward to shoot past me to get a hold of your cup.
Bit
and
of
that's what you
runway
have to do.
starting back here.
Yeah, just a little bit more so you can shoot forward. Now, right? So what happens is most people tend to use their hand and they try to use complete wrist control to sink in a hook. You pull backwards and they try to do this. Now, if you pull backwards, you try to do that, but I have enough pronation or whatever to stop you, then what's going to happen is your hand is going to be exposed and you'll be back to the pad without fighting for your life with your bottom 2 fingers, right? So shooting past can provide a lot. Now, the fastest move in like boxing, right? I think. Oh man, there's a lot of boxers here. It's like a jab, right? It's shooting forward with your arm, moving your elbow forward. Now, throwing your whole body into a punch is a little bit slower. Sorry, I'm going that way. Throwing your whole body into a punch is a little bit slower because you're moving your whole body and all your weight. Now, it's more powerful, but faster would be a jab, right? Something like that, moving forward. So when you're doing an arm wrestling, it happens so fast because we don't want to open up. But in general, if you could jab and then come forward right after, in order to establish hand, right? So I'll race you basically. What I'm saying is, when I want to establish my hand to the hook, and say you were trying to top roll, then I plan on racing my knuckle here before you top roll. I plan on racing my knuckle here before he top rolls. So to do that, I can punch. Now that was more elbow movement, and then I tighten up, right? Because the elbow movement is the fast part, right? The snap, kind of like a jab.
But it's a 2-part movement, not all in one.
It looks like it's all in one during a match because you'll get so fast, your body will get used to working together, but really the speed is coming from moving your elbow forward, right? About sinking the hook in. And then this just comes, because we get so used to staying tight and staying connected, because that's the most important thing, that it looks like it's all in one motion. But really, if something stopped me for some reason, this thing would still go forward. And then I would come in and get tight, right? So the elbow movement is the important part of initiating your hook. So I'm gonna give a little bit of back pressure, like a little fake pressure this way. But when we start, you can start the match, start the movement, shoot past. Give me your little runway there. And you want to shoot with your knuckles here. You want your hand to end up right here, these 2 knuckles right here, and cupped in specifically, right? Okay. So now you're ready to shoot. More elbow, and then bring this up after. We'll worry about this, the shoulder coming tighter in a little bit. In a minute. Let's get this part down first.
Come up with that a bit.
Oh, that center of the table right there? Looks like center, right? Punch fast. Don't worry about, see, you're trying to wrist curl me in. Exit my hand. And, yeah, literally, so if I'm just you, see, I'll leave your hand to secure my cup.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Punch it. Over here. Leave. Yeah. There we go. Now you're sinking the hook. That's how you get a hook. There we go. So by punching that way, it's so much faster, and you're able to secure your cup a lot better, and then you wrench down, right? If you're just trying to curl someone the whole time, not many people's wrist is that fast in a concentric movement. I mean, even think of it like this. I can concentric, I can curl 60, I can hold 80, I can slowly let down 100, right? So if you're trying to curl me in, that's your weakest movement. Shooting forward, tightening up, and then holding, well, that's our strongest movement, right?
Makes sense.
Right.
That
So
makes sense.
trying to race to that point will lead to success a lot as far as establishing a hook. Now I know this is going forward, going towards me. There's a lot that can go wrong with that. There's a lot that can go right if you do it correctly, right? So the beginning of any hook match, say we're both going in a hook. The beginning of hook matches is a battle for center table. It's a battle for center line. This is a Devon thing, right? It's a line from the side of your shoulder to the back of your hand, as if there was a string here from the side of his shoulder to the back of his hand, and that should cut across my bicep. That's the fight. Now, if we're both hooking, and I'm hooking as well, then the fight at the beginning of the table is for that line. I'm trying to line that up to hop on yours, and you're trying to line that up to hop on mine. I'll hop on my bicep. Now, what that's doing is it's using a bunch of your muscles versus a couple of my muscles. It's just a lot versus a little, right? That's the idea. So we're still establishing our hand. Okay, now we're in. This tightens up. Now, I want you leaning down on your elbow. Your shoulder should be above your elbow. Lean down. Now, what leaning down does is that's fortifying his elbow. When I'm above my elbow and I'm pushing down, the pressure helps fortify my elbow. So it's really good for defense, right? Because if I try to dig you out while you're leaning down, everything's compressed. It's a lot harder. Okay?
Putting all my weight in my elbow.
Yeah, a lot of it, right?
A lot of it.
Because if you go over center table, then it's too far, right? But you want to be pushing down. So you see a lot of guys, when they go on a defensive hook, you're supposed to stand up, push down on your elbow, and wrist curl. And that's when I start supinating, right? But I'm pushing down really heavy, so that way this is compressed. Also, when I'm pushing down my arm, you gotta think you can hold a lot of weight like this, right? Compared to arm out here, right? So I'm pushing down and I'm fortifying this. That's how you do table curls, a lot of weird things. People can drive a lot of weight like that when they're compressed. So I call it a football tuck, catching a football, only football. But basically, you go to a football tuck when you're on defense, all right? So they're hitting, I'm pushing down as far as I can with my arm, my shoulder vertical over my elbow. Then so that's defense, because I can't really pin someone like that unless I'm doing some weird stuff, right? So,
Please explain.
but the reason I'm telling you to do that in offense is you're establishing your hand and you won that fight, right? So if I try to drive, you push down, and that's when you start supinating, or pronating, sorry. Pronation doesn't make you strong, it makes me weak. If you pronate me, you're not amplifying your strengths, it's just I'm getting weaker. By rotating my hand, it's taking away elbow flexors and it's opening my arm up, right? So I think pronation is best utilized as far as hooking near the pin points, near you pinning me and near you and where you stop me. But center table, I'm not a big fan of pronation center table, not at all. I think that center table can best be controlled in a hook, or just talking about hooking, by using supination in the bottom of your wrist. A lot of this stuff, right?
For center. And then when we're getting down here,
Then the pronation starts for pinning, because then you're trying to rotate my hand and finish it, right? But, because yeah, that's what when you're sap my strength. I'm so sweaty.
it's warm in there. No AC.
So we're shooting for our hand, we're establishing our hand, there's our 30% jump, and once we're in the hook, we start focusing on getting ready to pin. This is step 2 of arm wrestling. Any successful arm wrestling match, step 2, getting ready to pin. Arm wrestling there's 3 ways to make someone weak in arm wrestling. Only 3. It's 3 joints. 1, 2, 3. You can talk about finger joints, but we'll leave those alone for now, right? So when we're in a match stops, all you do is focus on these 3. And this is the most easily explained thing that people make so complicated. Once we get into a match, you either attack my shoulder and chest by trying to get my arm outside of my shoulder and chest so I don't have access to my chest and to my a lot of my rotator cuff, because everything's out there, and my lat is disengaged when I get opened up. You either extend my bicep or my brachialis, depending on what move I'm doing. So that's going to take away a lot of my elbow flexing drive. And then you attack my hand by either cupping it or by pronating it. So when we get in there, it's a chest match. You shoot for your hand, that's 30% increase, boom. Now, okay, say you chose my bicep. So you start making me do a bicep curl by sliding your elbow back. Okay, now when my bicep starts opening up, first thing I'm gonna do when someone attacks my bicep is I'm gonna defend my bicep, right? I'm gonna start contracting it. The moment I contract my bicep, you attack my shoulder by sliding your elbow over. Get me outside my shoulder blade.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so the moment you attack my shoulder and chest, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna defend my shoulder and chest. The moment I defend that, maybe you rotate, attack my hand. The moment I defend my hand, maybe you go back to my shoulder and chest. and then maybe I'm gonna defend that, and then maybe back to my bicep. So it's only 3 things. You just keep alternating the 3 things over and over again. And whatever I'm defending, you go to the next one, right? It's not rocket science. Now, within those, so I call those doors, right? I call each one of those things doors. That's a door, and that's a door. Now, over time, we develop keys for these doors, right? So at some point, you're gonna try to get my chest. And say my chest is too solid, you're like, dude, I can't move this chest open. Okay, well, how are we gonna amplify, what other keys do we have to try to open that door? Maybe you re-grip, maybe you get more behind your arm, maybe you hit bicep first and then hit my chest. So there's just different ways to hit those 3 things. That's all it is, right? So over time, that's the tricky part, is developing your keys, right? Your different ways on the table to hit these 3 things. So we get a hook, boom. Now you're winning that angle really good. You're on my bicep. I'm opened up really well.
Okay.
Now my goal is to try to get that back via attacking the 3 things, right? So I can hit bicep, try and hit your bicep. The moment I feel you tensing of that bicep, so then maybe I'll hit the hand. The moment you defend that hand, sideways, bicep, hand, bicep, sideways, until eventually, if everything's perfect in training, he should have me opened up, outside my chest, hand dominated, and then step 3 is pin. Pin should be the easiest part. That should be your pin, because you own somebody, right? So if you do this in practice, and you get used to practicing like this, owning someone first and then pinning them, then when you go into a real tournament, a real match, you're looking for those. Subconsciously, you're just feeling for it. Oh, bicep, oh, shoulder, chest, bicep. You tend to feel for it just naturally. Does all this make sense so far?
Yes. The defending part is something I haven't practiced in practice. Like counter moves, basically.
Right.
Especially in a hook. Well, in top of war hook, I haven't practiced any counter moves.
Yeah, I mean, reading those, it's just like when someone's about to pin you and they're taking away your pronation and stuff, doubling down on bicep and elbow control feels really good in a hook. It's something that's really stable that you can triple down with by leaning forward and pushing down. Now, that's a very defensive way of stopping somebody because I'm fortifying my elbow, but I can't move my elbow at the same time. I can't push down as hard as I can and slide my elbow. It doesn't work together. So that's why it's defense. And then I like to, this is controversial. Here's a controversial topic. Devin promotes the King of the Hill idea. Have you heard this one?
Yes.
So if you control the top, like a high hook, you control the top of the hand, you have options from there, and it's true. If you have a high hook from above, a high hook is where you establish hand control, and you post up, and you're up here. You control above their wrist, and from above, you can go wherever you want. From above, I can go back into a hook. From above, I can keep top rolling. From above, I can press. I can do whatever I want from above, right? Because I control the top. Now, he says so it's like a pyramid, basically, or it's like a hill. But there's a way that Ryan Bowen talked about briefly, and I've been promoting for a long time. Supination does have a place. Supination is controlled by your bicep. When your supinator muscle, which is super tiny, fails, your bicep carries the load. Well, great, you have a great bicep, right? We worry about bicep all the time. So I was like, man, I have a long arm. If I get that bicep up to par, then no one can run from me because my arm's so long. So if I get my cupping and bicep good, then I should be able to hook amazing, right? As long as I get my elbow built. So we get to the hook, we're on defense, boom, we stop the guy. Now, undercutting via chest and rotator cuff / shoulder is really good controlling center table. Then when we get here, that'll open the guy up, and then we can get back to pronation. So pronation near both pads, center table, I like to supinate.
Using the chest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that's going to keep fighting for center. So once you're there, this is going to be very elbowy. This is going to hurt. I'm going to preface that, right? That's why I purposely train my elbow for this. Rubber bands, pull them sideways, just getting in there. Because especially with a longer arm, you have a longer arm too, it's going to put more pressure on that elbow. But once the elbow's ready to go, then everything works out well. So we're here, you're pronating, I'm up, push it down, you square up. When you're in defense, do you still have your feet in that one stance?
I do.
Okay. Square up, turn your hips. When you're on defense, turn everything.
Yeah.
No, I mean, turn your body, rotate, like face me.
Face you.
Yeah.
On defense.
Yeah, because now you're gonna have more access to your lat and everything, right? So you're pronating. Now say you start winning this fight. I'm pronating right now, right? Everybody pronates all the time. Well, if I'm pronating and you say screw it, let Derek pronate, I'm supinating, then you can chop. Because I'm not even fighting there. You have access to all my bicep.
By moving this way.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. So now, since you went underneath my wrist and I was trying to pronate, you won that center table battle. Right. So if I'm doing it, I'm losing. I'm in defense. Instead of me trying to fight your pronation, I'll pronate just to stop the pin. But then when I'm ready to start driving,
I feel that.
yeah, you feel me going across? I'm chopping underneath his hand.
And you're getting me much closer to the pin.
And then now
outside of my line.
Now that fight, right? And now I got that fight, and now I start pronating. You understand? So I pronate near the pads, center table, in a hook. We're talking about just hooking, supination. Supination heavy. Okay, so we were talking about controlling center of the table and what's important in an arm wrestling match. 3 joints, 1, 2, 3. Now you can get detailed and crazy about how you want to attack those 3 things, but those are the 3 main ones. It's just 3, all you have is those joints. No, everybody's built the same, right? And so each one, if we target enough, just depletes that guy's strength, right? So it's just alternating those 3 things. Even in a top roll, it's the same thing. You take someone's hand or you control someone's hand, it's still sideways, bicep, cupping, controlling their hand. You just keep alternating those. But there is such a thing in top rolling as over rotating, going too far, and then being stuck down there. Have you ever tried to top roll someone and they stop like this? And their arm's not going anywhere, but their hands went back?
Yes.
I've seen that.
I hate that.
Yeah, it sucks, right?
It does.
So what that usually is over rotating. What you want to do in a top roll or any kind of hand controlling motion is you want to take enough of their hand where you got it, but they think they can get it, right? You have to keep teasing them. So you take enough where I could keep rotating, I could bend your hand all the way back, but any established arm wrestler, the moment they see that thing really failing, going back, is going to say, screw my hand, it's gone. I understand it's gone. I'm not going to try to hold on anymore. And they're going to start just tightening up here, holding for dear life. Then eventually, I don't know how many lifts you guys have done. I know Larry does a lot of crazy lifts, but I don't know how much lifts he's done like this. But I'm sure he's not insanely strong like this, right? Nobody is, right? So when you get down to that spot, they just tighten up here, uppercut, tighten up their bicep, turn it into a press, and start this stuff, right? So you don't want to over-rotate. You want to go far enough where you have control, but you don't want to just keep taking it because you're just going to end up in a bad spot. That's getting in the top roll, which we can get to. So hooking, it's all a percentage game. All of arm wrestling, to me, in the way my brain works, it's all about percentages, right? So I said, you establish your hand, that's 30%, right? Well, if I open up your bicep, we'll say it's another 20%, right? Then if I shoot sideways, we'll say it's another 20%, if I successfully take out these muscles. So all I'm thinking of is I want to get to 99% before I pin you, especially in training, right? Because I want to get used to owning the table before I even think about trying to pin you in training. So that way in a real match, I naturally just seek all these things out. I can feel it, I feel what you're loading up your chest and your lat, I can feel where you're going, I can see from the foot placement what you're tending to do, and be like, okay, I can read this situation, I know where to go now, I know the options. So in a hook, that's why I think hooking is more complicated than top roll. Once you take that, it's not very complicated after that, right? It's just kind of finger walking and a little bit of maneuvering. Oh, here's a controversial topic too. I love these ones, right? I think that pronation isn't as important as everybody says, and I think that pronation is more important in a hook than it is in a top roll.
Oh, you're in trouble.
Oh,
you're
man.
in trouble now.
Okay. So
Outrage.
I called, this is a true story, I called Travis Bajan a few months ago, and I realized I'd never heard Travis talk. I've been to all his seminars, I've worked out with him, I've never seen him worry about pronation. I've never even heard him use the word pronation. Now, okay, how can the world's most famous top roller not ever talk about pronation? Because top rolling is all pronation, right? Well, I called him and I said, hey man, I said, I've never heard you talk about it. What do you do for pronation? And he's like, man, get that shit out of here. He's like, what are you talking about, man? Pronation, what is that? And I was like, no, seriously, like, what do you do? And he goes, I rise. He's like, I rise and they crumble. They fold underneath my rising. That's what they do. So it got me thinking, right? Everybody hails pronation as like the end-all be-all. And I think it is really important. Devin, cup, roll, and rise, right? Always the same thing. And it is very important, but if you think about it, in a top roll, you're posting up. You're hitting into their fingers and you're posting. The majority of the pressure going on is by you getting into their hand and posting. The pronation is minimal, right? If you're posting properly into their fingers, then it just needs a little dash of pronation, and that's fine, and their hand crumbles, right? You're not eating into their hand, into their palm, and just rotating their hand over, right? Because your pronator teres is not that big of a muscle. It's the weakest flexor, or elbow flexor there is, right? So no one's just going to rotate over. Maybe Levon. All right, besides Levon, no one's just going to grab someone by the base of their arm and pronate through their hand, right? So even Travis and everything is all posting with some cupping and a little bit of pronation at the end. Right, but in a hook, like we were talking about, pronation can get really important. It can get really heavy. You feel all that pronation in a hook and in a strap, right? You'll feel a lot more of my pronation. So I think it plays a way bigger part in hooking than it does top rolling, right? It's just kind of added in there, top rolling. Now, I'm on a journey after I leave here with you guys to go see Ingen Terzi, and he is pronation king. This dude preaches pronation. He's like all pronation now. So I'm sure I'm wrong. And I'm sure he's going to let me know I'm wrong. But I'm excited to hear about it.
What about Hermes? Is he?
I haven't met Hermes, but from what I know of him, I've seen him go low hand a lot. He posts hard, controls the hand, and then goes sideways. Hopefully tomorrow we can feel that and see if that's proper or not. But yeah, I think that's what he does. He tends to post. But even that isn't a ton of pronation. That's posting into the fingers, controlling center table, and going sideways, right? And then you can transition that into a press or whatever you want. Now, so inside moves, and there's outside moves. Inside moves is with your shoulders forward, outside moves, shoulder backwards. Not complicated. That goes forward, it goes backwards, right? There's, you can go shoulder forward and top roll. You could go shoulder backwards and hook, like Michael Edge doing, right? Still inside and outside. Outside is still opening up and pulling back. Inside is still shoulder forward, right? So I don't like to put a lot of labels on names, on like moves. Low hand top roll, high posting hook. You focus on what's important, right? If he's not guarding his hand, tag his hand. If he's grabbing you low, then you want to apply inside pressure, right? It's just, the moves can all look different because I'm doing the move to reach a goal, right? Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. Shoulder forward. That shoulder forward, you mean when we're inside here, get in here.
Yes. That's inside arm wrestling. So it's controlling that line, hopefully getting your cup in first, step one, always establishing your hand. Because you have a strong cup, you have strong fingers, you grab 400 pounds on a double overhand axle bar. So, 440, right?
Okay.
So then, you got me in the hook, now it's the game. It's the game. Whatever you focus on, hopefully I hit the right counter. If you focus on my bicep too much, then say you try to make me do a bicep curl, going backwards, then maybe I'll focus on hand,
Then I go
right?
forward.
And then you can go sideways, and then maybe I'll hit your bicep.
And then I go back here.
Right?
Okay.
And then it's just that game. It's the game of what I'm defending and what you're attacking, right? Now, the keys are what's important. If I get sticky somewhere, you got to find a different key or try a different key, because if something's not working in arm wrestling, it's not going to work. Meaning, if I'm going backwards and that bicep starts opening up, you're not suddenly going to hit ninth gear and the thing's just going to, pop forward. If it's opening, it's going to open. So that's why I'm a big fan of I don't want to say European hooking, but the guys that get really tight and they hook like this, what they're doing is they're looking for those three things, right? So say we're in a really tight hook, we're center table, right? Now what I'm doing is I'm doing micro hits to test your three doors, right? So say I'm going to test Larry's chest. So me testing your chest would be, okay, too strong. His chest is too strong. So I'll do a micro hit just to find out if his chest is too strong. So now maybe if I'm dedicated to opening up his chest because his chest feels too sticky, maybe I'll go up. Maybe I'll regrip up his hand a little bit, and then I'll try it because a little further away from his center, right? So then I can try sideways because the lever's longer now. Okay, that didn't work. All right, well maybe I'll hit biceps. Now it's micro adjustments. Americans are known for being sloppy. What we tend to do is, if I want to hit your bicep, they fly backwards and they try it. Now, you're gambling a lot. Speed is a component of strength in arm wrestling, for sure. If you're going fast, that is the thing, it's power, right? Speed and strength is power. But you're gambling a lot, because if I stop you and you're under that table, you're screwed. You have no transition, you're not suddenly going to hit some awesome move from down there, and if you try to stand back up, I'm going to take you across the table. Right? So you're gambling a lot. So in the high-level arm wrestlers, it's really small movements, small tests. Test the side pressure, oh, it didn't work, okay, tighten up. I didn't sacrifice anything. Test the bicep, oh, my arm opened up a centimeter. Nope. Tighten back up. They're thinking, and they're controlling, and they're pushing down their elbow, they're fortifying, they're waiting for you to make a move so they can take advantage of it. Yeah. It's just control, center of the table until they're ready to explode and hit something else when they feel like it's a good move, a good gamble.
Okay.
Right? But it's way more controlled, which I think is awesome. That's why I love watching those guys get in there deep. Because you can see, you know what you're looking for, you can see the small movements. It's beautiful. It's beautiful arm wrestling. So, top rolling, hook. I'm gonna keep working on it.
Well, for today, let's stick with hook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna give a little back pressure to help you work on establishing your hand. Right, not a ton, but I'm just gonna give you a little bit so that way you feel that pressure back so you're gonna shoot past. Right? So in the setup, maybe you'll say I'm loading that position. Okay? So you go when you're ready. You're still starting. I'm just giving them a little back pressure just to start. Sure. Punch that thing. Remember, elbow first, this comes out. Is that your full wrist curl? There's the full wrist curl. Right now I'm under. Now you're controlling that line really good. You got me in a hook. Now I was a top roller just now, they got crushed into a hook. A top roller that gets crushed into a hook is automatically in a shitty defensive hook, which sucks for everybody. But I just have to understand that I'm there, accept that I'm there, and start digging my way out. So it would be shoulder forward for me, tightening up. Now you're still winning the center table, the center line. So you're on my bicep because you're using your chest by sliding your elbow, which is opening me up. You're stabilizing with your shoulder and your rotator cuff, and you're controlling my hand right now. So I could try to dig out, but when you press down, that elbow ain't moving, right? Because you're pushing down, he's fortifying his elbow, so I can't dig him out there. So I would have to really start trying to hit that bicep backwards as hard as I can, right? Which is gonna expose mine.
You have to pronate when you apply backwards.
Yeah, that's definitely a move because it's a hand, arm, shoulder, right? And that's the thing. So that's why when we start getting into small details, where to put your finger and stuff, it all boils down to those 3 things, right? And eventually you'll learn like, okay, right now I want to control his hand. Okay, well, last week we practiced gripping, or last week we practiced going up. So these are keys to the door. We're just building different keys to try to win that little fight over and over again. Stuff makes real sense. It's simple. Arm wrestling is not that confusing. People make it way too confusing. Right?
Getting everything to feel like second nature though takes time.
Yeah, that takes definitely muscle memory and muscle synergy is what I like to call it, or whatever. But just getting your arms used to working together is a big thing. Hopefully, we'll shoot another video like in a gym setting, in a gym setting. I mean, like with weights and stuff like that, and I can kind of explain my thoughts on how lifting can carry over to arm wrestling and how to apply it on the table, like how to make it all work together. You know. All right. Do you want to ramp it up a little bit, but still stay here? I don't want to. If we go up, I don't want to pull through. I don't want to damage anything. But if you want to ramp it up a little bit, you can.
Sure. I can try and see if I can break your center.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a feeling you can't.
I don't think so. You forget your tank sometimes.
Yeah, but, oh, by the way, I can already tell you guys, he's gotten a lot stronger since last time we arm wrestled. We're going to do still initiative.
Okay.
Nice.
Keeping it nice and tight. Good.
Nice. Strong as hell. Strong as hell. Definitely has gotten a lot stronger for sure.
You know, when I was hooking prior to you arriving today, I had no clue how to use my chest. And now that you taught me how to use it and why, I feel I wasn't doing any of this.
Yeah.
It was all back and forth. Now, in a hook, I get how important that is, not only to stay forward so I can use my chest, but also the power I gain in a hook just doing this.
Yep.
I mean, did you feel it? Did you feel
Yeah, no, you feel
from
really
here to there?
cemented. I was just testing your bicep a lot, and it was feeling great, and the hand was feeling great. I didn't want to start driving too hard sideways, but legitly, like in that angle, I couldn't hold on. You did me for sure. If I just sat like that, I could not stop it.
Question for you. You said that you really don't use the peg that much. So in a hook like this, should he be using the peg and kind of
Like bringing it together.
bringing it together? Yeah.
So
pec deck.
everybody promotes pulling away. It is pulling. That is still a basis in arm wrestling. Going directly sideways will allow me to potentially get in the match, right? Because that means you're not attacking my bicep. If you're going straight sideways, that's allowing me to get tight and access my muscles and do that football tough and get really tight. So pulling backwards is always a good thing. Now, if we're pulling backwards, it's hard to drive towards this and pull backwards at the same time. So this is more of a shoulder roll or press type of situation.
Okay.
Going forward, if that's the move you're going for, which is totally fine and doable, but it's just, that's why it's only like 1 or 2 instances where this provides anything, really, in my opinion.
Now, because you gave everything to me in the setup, you let me get in full wrist curl on top of your hand. Now, if I'm going against hooker, like if you do the same thing I'm trying to do without you giving it to me, what does that mean?
Well, if we're both going forward, so say I'm trying to hook and he's trying to hook. The first, you don't need to worry about establishing your hand as much because we're going to go pretty much into the same thing, right? The hand is going to get established. And then it's going to be a center line fight. The first thing that happens is that center line fight for who's going to get on whose bicep. That's the very first thing. That's why, that's Devin's crack, crack, crack thing. When Devin goes crack, 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 he means I'm going to come forward with my shoulder, you come forward with your shoulder, and we'll see whose frame cracks and breaks.
Forward.
Yeah, because I'm shooting the same thing this way. And we'll see whose arm gets out. That's what he means by that. Okay. So the hook versus hook fight is kind of, first thing is that fight for center line. It's a little dicey, right? It's a little dicey. That's why I didn't want to go sideways. Because it takes time, and slowly getting in that defensive spot, letting people ramp up the pressure and getting more comfortable with how much pressure you're putting on your elbow over time, right? So I'll hook someone that's like a lightweight guy on my team, and I'll have a guy with a rubber band right here pulling straight sideways on my arm, just working on my elbow, just trying to control, trying to pull me open. So this keeps getting work. So this keeps tightening up and fortifying over and over. Right?
Okay.
But
Cramp it up a bit.
feels strong.
Left back, actually. What's up?
I say feels strong.
Thank you, sir.
I really have to apply myself.
That might be because you're not applying any force this way.
No,
Because once you take me out of where I'm strong, then I think it will look a lot different.
Okay, we'll do this. I'll try to dig you out to center.
So
You try to get me over here. I'm just going to try to get you back here.
Okay.
I'll try that. I'm going to really try.
Well, pretty much. Once you get me back here, what's stopping you from going for the pin, right?
Well, I mean, that's when you would defense up, you would square up, push down. Like, you know what I mean? We get into that whole game.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, all right.
But it's like we all knew he had the muscles, right? It's just it's just using them in the right order and activating it. That's never been a question. You're a stronger guy than me for sure.
Well, but where I need it, it's questionable.
That's right. Nice job. There you go. Come on. Keep it tight. Don't let him pull you. Oh, there you go. Nice. That was awesome.
That's hard. I've never because usually when we get in the hook, I'm like, I want to start driving. I'm like, ooh, hold. Here it comes. Hold.
While we're resting, I felt a couple of times you bring me back to center, right? Then you got fatigued holding me. Then I was able to go for the pin. But I was really paying attention to what you said about not just trying to get in my most advantageous position and then go for the pin.
Right.
I wasn't rushing for the pin.
I felt it. I felt you. We stopped here, and then I felt you start going back. I felt you start targeting the proper things and doing it in the right order. And by the time you pinned me, you had me open. You had me out here trying to rotate while I'm open, bicep was failing, and stuff like that. Perfect.
And I pinned in a way that I never did before. I was here, and because I wasn't feeling strong here, I was getting separated.
Yes.
I just went straight down.
Yeah, it was perfect, dude.
It was almost like a press.
Yeah.
But not a press.
By staying tight like that, that'll allow that option, right? You have a tricep option. By staying tight, you have other options as far as inside movements. So Devin says he either goes all the way out or all the way in, right? It's one of the two. Either he is jumping in so far with his chin over his shoulder like this, hooking like this, or he's king's moving. It's one of the two. Right now, I like fundamentals a little bit more. I think fundamentals will lead to more things like a high hook, right? Which he doesn't do anymore. He created it, or he named it or whatever, or his team did. But he's doing one or the other. But he has a good point. If you get all the way deep into hook, you have your chest covered and your rotator cuff and everything's locked in, then you're a dangerous man. How are they going to dig you out? If you're leaning down, trying to pull someone's whole elbow open is super hard. Just using your bicep and your lat, trying to drag them open, super hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I felt very little here. I was just pulling back because you were pulling back. I was trying to win center, win my side of the table. Yeah. But there's no way I would be able to do a drag hook and pin you this way. So I just went where I felt I was strongest, and surprisingly, it was just straight down.
It felt great. I know it felt great because my chest is still pumped. That means I was applying on the side, and it's opened up. Great. Rest for a minute, and then
now I think, since we're still on the topic of book, maybe the last lesson for today would be inside versus outside, right? So when you're doing one of these to defend me getting that cup, right?
Oh, right.
What do I do in that situation?
As the hooker or as
the hooker?
As the hook puller, one, speed, right? We were working earlier on you shooting past. Now, that is still a bigger motion than posting. So a lot of times that guy, if they're doing a low hand top roll like that, or something where they're ditching their riser, then it's meant to be the hook puller. And that's what the riser's for. So oftentimes if you go against me and I'm low hand top rolling, I have a big advantage, right? I'm set up because I'm targeting your bottom two fingers specifically. I'm really setting up for you to try to dive in, and I'm depending on you trying to use your bottom two fingers so I can reel it out. That's what I'm baiting and waiting for. So the answer to a low top roll, if you want to use those titles, is to control the top, right? If I'm dumping my height, then you go take that height and you just control the top of my wrist. Because I'm hoping that you're going to try to jump in on the bottom. But if you don't take that bait and you control the top, then I have nowhere.
Show this right now, please.
Sure, yeah.
So if you were hooking, and I knew you were hooking, Larry,
I'm shooting in.
Right there. Then what I'm going to do is, before we even start, I don't need to fight the height right now because I know you're coming with those bottom two fingers. So before we even start, when we're squared up, then then I'm gonna be putting pressure up with these two and his bottom two fingers. So that way when he tries to collapse and he tries to wrist curl me in, everything's gonna be out there so he can't curl me in, right?
Yeah, nothing I can do.
So a low hand top roll like that, low hand top roll, is basically raising the ridge of my thumb up into his fingers. So put your hand up, open your finger, hand all the way. Now it's me trying to get this ridge higher into his hand so he has less coverage on the back of my hand. And specifically, the strongest point is right here for me. So I'm trying to get that point up into his pinky fingers, right?
So you're going from, instead of usually be here, right your eye, until you're going here, dumping it.
So I can get up into your hand so that way you can't get hold of me. So that's like, it's an anti-hook style of top rolling, basically, which is really good in the straps. Because in the straps, which we'll get to, you want more pressure with this bottom strap, mostly. So this amplifies that. I'm already putting a ton of pressure into that bottom strap. A low hand top roll is a very offensive style of top rolling because I know it looks defensive because I'm stopping his hook, but if I don't pin him on the first surge, so boom, I get here, because I lost my riser, because I can't go up anymore, I don't have a lot of options. So I'm down here, he stops me somehow. So what am I gonna do? Just like with all my riser, and I'm not Michael Todd, I can't just, I'm not just gonna rise up and take it, right? Yeah. So my wrist is dumped. All I can do is just try harder. I can't go up and get into a hook because I'll be screwed, I'll be already separated. There's not a lot of options. So if a low hand top roll doesn't work, keep trying harder or slip to the straps.
Okay.
Pretty much all you got.
What should he do if you're in that position and he can't get into the hook?
Control the top.
Yeah,
so if you're dedicated to hooking, you are a hardcore hook arm wrestler and you see me dumping, then don't chase me there. Here, and focus on cupping, right? Don't chase me where I want you to chase me. Stay high above because I'm dropping this angle and I'm giving you all this, so take all that and crunch all that. So what would happen is you're just flat cupping. Don't worry about the supination part, just flat cup.
Just flat cup.
Yeah.
But still trying to hook.
Yeah, and it's a little more outsidey. It's more high hooking.
Okay.
So it would just be a flat cup.
But so I'd be starting. Well, would I anticipate it? Because what if they're not projecting what they're going to do? So what if they're starting riser high and then they dump?
One, you'd watch a shoulder to see if they're starting to go outside. If they're all hook pullers, lead with the shoulder to try to get in. Outside pullers won't lead with it, right? There's no point. I want to be already back, ready to apply pressure into your fingertips. Yeah. So you can see it by the shoulder. Your friends and teammates can see it by his foot stance, about where he's going. If he's in a top roll, if he's pushing backwards, if he's going sideways, right? So they should be able to scream, Larry, he's top rolling you, right? Then in the hand setup, some people will telegraph it like this. They'll do this whole thing, right? But some people will get like a medium, kind of high, kind of low grip like this, even though they know they're about to do this right at the beginning, right? Okay. So you'd read their body language a lot and see if I'm sitting up here, then I'm obviously running. Because I will fight that center line if I'm hooking with you. I'll be getting ready to fight that center line with you. Right?
I see your shoulder coming forward.
Yeah.
And so I'll see that. I'll see about this. So instead of going for here, I'll just before they're ready to go, I'll be going up here trying to climb.
Mm-hmm. And then once they say go, I just have to see my thumb knuckles. So go all the way up to the edge of my thumb knuckles.
All the way up here.
Yeah. And then it's it's flat cupping and a little bit of post. Like that. And then we'd be in this angle, and then you have carte blanche after that. You can do whatever you want from that angle. Because I've taken away all my power, I'm just holding on for dear life. Right? Okay. But it's height. If someone goes low hand, you go high. Whether in a hook or a top roll, you just go high.
Okay.
Now it's easier said than done.
I was going to say, when you give me some pressure, I'd like to see what that feels. Just a little bit.
Now this is one of the rare instances where grip can come into play. As a low hand top roller, I don't want him to get out with my fingertips. If I can bring him into my hand, it'll not allow him to get outside of my lever so much. So gripping tight as a low hand top roller can do good. Vitaly, high, dumps his angle because his arm's so long, and he can grip on an axle bar like as much as Larry. It's over 400 pounds, right? It's a crazy grip, high, low hand. So I imagine when he comes here, he's gonna lock everybody in with his grip and just rotate and post. Everybody's handling like that, right? But I've never gripped up with it, so we'll see. Don't dump your wrist back. You're starting to cave there. Still straighten out. Right your shoulder. There you go. Yeah. Now if I was top rolling you, I'd be purposely not allowing you to get on the back of my hand. As you do that, I'll just supinate and try to keep you off the back of my hand so I can stay pressuring your fingertips. That'll be my goal. Right? Okay. I'm still gonna go low. I'm still gonna come out that way. But just so you know, I'll be playing these games a lot.
Okay.
So you want me to actually try to get your hand? Or do you want
like you would in a low hand top?
In a low hand.
Yeah. So I was gripping him high, but I mean, he still peeled through my fingers, no problem.
I squeezed pretty hard here to make sure he couldn't keep rising above my thumb. all right, to keep him into my hand. And then while keeping him secured in my hand, I'd push my elbow forward and went over the top. So this is one of the rare instances where height plays a big advantage, right, with length of arm, right, the height of my arm. Because if I get straight up like that, you're trying to hold on, hold me down, while keeping your elbow down, it's rough, right, because of my length. That's why Vitali's so amazing, one of the reasons.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, would it be getting this stronger? Bigger, all this?
Cupping is big. Strong grip, you've held millions of pounds in your fingers, right? That is very strong. The wrist cupping is a newer thing for you, right? So getting that developed at a high level is something all top level arm wrestlers have, a ton of cup, right? Cup and pronation, same things. I know we talk about pronation, but it's still important. It's a big player just in specific areas to me. And then even supination, that's bicep, right? Supinating, right? So those are big things you have to work and develop. And then that goes in line with rising and sinking and extension and all that stuff. It all goes hand in hand. But just utilizing that like arm wrestlers do, that's why we do so much wrist training. You have everything else just ready. As soon as this gets caught up at that level, everybody's kind of screwed, right?
Okay, ready, go.
Targeted.
Oh, shit. Yeah. Another one?
Okay.
What just happened?
What just happened? Well, he's trying to get to. Oh my god! Look, all right.
That's good. Don't give him the grip. Don't
Yeah.
give him the grip.
Yeah, look, he's like touching my whole hand. Look.
See, that's thing, you know, to give. Look at your hand always. Look at your hand.
Yeah, always look at your hand. Watch your hand. Yeah, okay.
Looks good.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay. Okay. All right. Ready, go.
Come on. It's very hard with his elbow up like that.
Careful. Elbows on the table. Careful. No injuries, guys.
Okay.
Too tired.
Good match. Good match.
All right. Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. You did well. He's difficult. He's not easy.
Yeah.
He's not easy.
You know, go this way towards Larry a little bit. Yeah. So do a little back. There. That's center enough. Wrist. Ready, go. Got the hand.
See, when I'm in this position on top of your hand, it's very hard. Try to curl back.
Yeah. Let's see that arm. Huge. Awesome. Yeah.
Hey, so look, Jack doing it. It's all right.
That was amazing.
Good.
Do it.
All right, guys, wrapping up today's video. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about the whys. So the fundamentals are certainly a lot more clear to me, especially for hooking. I can't wait to say what your 7 years of top experience have to say over the next few days. We'll get there. But Gennady, Vitali, and Hermes are coming over the next few days. They will all be here together. I'll try to orchestrate as many matches as I can. I'll be like the devil in everybody's ear.
Hey, I'm down. I'll arm wrestle all those guys at once. I don't give a crap. All you can have is that. I mean, whatever.
I like your spirit. Thank you, man. Thank you for that. If you haven't already, please check out Derek's channel at
just Derek Smith Arm Wrestling. I'm not very creative. So, yeah, check it out.
All right, and we will be back tomorrow and probably every day for the next 7 days with a new vid. So stay tuned.
Yeah.